Hello everyone, my name is Jeanette Camping from Henry Stewart Events. I'd like to welcome you to our latest Creative Operations webinar, How Integrated Production Builds Operational Excellence, sponsored by GlobalEdit. It's great to see such a global audience of creative ops professionals registered with us today. Just a couple of housekeeping points before we get started. There will be time during the session dedicated to Q&A, so please send in your questions at any point on your GoToWebinar panel. And we are recording today's session, and you'll all be sent a link to the recording later. Now I'm delighted to welcome Brian Gavin, who's the President of GlobalEdit. Thank you, Brian, and over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you to Henry Stewart for hosting us. This is our second webinar series that we've done with you, and it's amazing to be joined with Lindsay and Aldana. Before we kick off, I just want to quickly introduce myself and GlobalEdit. I'm the president of GlobalEdit. We're the leading creative workflow management solution. We work with the world's leading brands and creatives to produce content at scale, and really excited today to be welcomed with Aldana and Lindsay. So I want to give you ladies just a quick chance to say hello and introduce yourselves before we get started. Aldana, I would love to pass the mic over to you and get us kicked off.
I'm Aldana. I'm the Senior Vice President of Industrial Color as well as Smashbox Studios and West Coast operations in general in LA.
I'm Lindsay, and I'm the Director of Counts for Industrial Color in LA.
Amazing. So let's get into our conversation today. One more housekeeping note is for the attendees, if you would like to pose a question, please add it into the chat area of your computer, and we'd be happy to either bring those into the fold of today's conversation or towards the end of our 45-minute conversation, we will be sure to address those. And one other piece I want to highlight is GlobalEdit and Industrial Color as sister companies work together to help produce content at scale. And part of what I'm so excited to bring Aldana and Lindsay together today to talk about is how integrated productions are the trend and the new norm. A few things that we see in the industry that are happening from the clients that we work with. Content creation is changing at an ever fast pace, faster than it's ever occurred before, and it's requiring us to think differently about how we build integrated productions. And our goal today is to give everyone here a little bit of tips and tricks on how do you get this right. So let's dive into this. One of the big pieces that I'm so excited about is how technology is being folded into production and being folded into studio production. And so from a client point of view, the usage of technology or the awareness of technology is changing. Our group of creatives are more educated than ever, and the availability of technology is more than it ever was before. And so, Aldana, there's kind of a fundamental point of technology that we lean on in the collaboration space. And so I want to just open it up with how the client expectation and offering of collaboration tools is changing how we operate in the studio and those that are actually not even in the studio.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us on, Brian, and inviting us to do this today. Yeah, technology has completely changed how we communicate with clients. For example, Slack is huge right now, and I just feel like the more clients are adopting Slack with communicating with us, the more embedded we're actually in their brand. And it's allowed us to be super, next level in terms of knowledge about their product, getting quick answers to things that normally would take an email to send out, and then you're busy in other meetings, you're not getting your email, and it takes forever to reply back. Now it's a quick little Slack message, oh, this model's not available, do you want me to go with your second choice? Yes, okay, great, pivot, let's quickly move on this. And we save email for more formal things like sending over estimates or signing contracts and such, but a lot of the meat of the production is now happening in Slack, which makes it move super quick. And we're getting answers from clients at record speeds, whereas before you would just be like, oh, they haven't gotten back to me yet. Can I reply yet? Can I check in? Is it too soon? Why won't they answer me? So now it's like we're really dialed in. And same with Microsoft Teams, every brand has their own chosen method, but us as an outside partner for these brands being invited in to work alongside them, it's been a game changer for us.
Yeah. Is it a part of offering, Lindsay, sorry, I just want to dive in 1 second with Aldana, is it a part of the expectation? Is it a white glove service? It seems, you know, and I know that the last couple of years have sort of drastically changed our workings, but it seems secondhand.
Yeah, I feel like COVID has really allowed more companies to feel comfortable with the, the landscape of technology, allowing for even more touch points to information and things, whereas before it was very closed, and it was almost just you had to go the traditional routes. But the more and more people are adopting these ways of working together, the more comfortable they feel. We do offer it to clients. It is a double-edged sword, because then you're also super available, which sometimes you need that time. But it works out better, I'd say. We're much more efficient, and we're able to create way more now, way more content on our shoots than ever before. And I feel like these pieces of technology that have allowed us to communicate to that next level is the driving force behind it.
Lindsay, you were going to share some feedback as well.
I was just going to add to Aldana's point, even to the teams in the Slack, like even, Google Drives and Google Sheets, we now have sheets that are shared between our clients where we're inputting, live updates as far as crew, as instead of sending an email where we would have in the past to say, hey, here's the people we have holding, we're inputting that information live into a doc that they can share so that they have the info they need, as they're heading into an internal meeting. But also on the other side, like some of our clients are, sharing full project documents with us, so we can see, milestones preceding the shoot, after. We can really have more of like a full context of a project, which has been really helpful, as well.
And I know we're going to talk a little bit on the rigidity of some of the tools that kind of break down process, but the trend seems to be flexibility and accommodation to a variety of different team members. And I know the team members that are now joining all the way down to the pre-production and production level are changing, and we have to be ready there to accommodate. The other angle of the collaboration front is the output and kind of what we're capturing within a particular set for our clients, and the expectations from the client about, I guess, the devices that we're operating, and it's maybe not just traditional hardware. Lindsay, I wanted you to weigh in a little bit on what's happening here on the capture side.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely seeing the use of the iPhone a lot more in recent shoots. So, it can be anything from, we actually did an entire shoot where the iPhone was the main camera, but sometimes we're seeing shoots where the iPhone is like a supplemental camera. We're setting up, almost like a type of photo booth, as an additional setup to capture additional content. Or sometimes even our client is coming with their own iPhone and shooting some of the products that we've lit and are on set with the camera, just to be able to have different types of imagery and content. So we're really seeing the use of the iPhone a lot, which has been exciting and kind of comes with its own own set of new challenges and workflows and all of that.
I think it's super interesting to hear that full production, full capture is being built around an iPhone. I don't know if I expected to just see it in my time, but it's here now. And that comes along with capturing, still and motion. And now you have a kind of a third medium, which is iPhone capture. From a space and layout perspective, is that something that you're orchestrating all within, the same studio set, or how do you, I guess, move a product and maybe there's a model involved through that production line to get captured efficiently in all three of these mediums that need to be shot?
It takes many production assistants to ensure that the model is getting to all the different, sets that we need him or her to go to, or even just the product. And this is like weeks and weeks of planning in advance of how are we going to do this? How are we going to make sure that as the chaos of the day is unfolding, that we're not going to miss any sort of assets that we were supposed to capture that day, and that the model doesn't just go off and go get their phone and start texting instead of being in the photo booth to capture social assets and some BTS moments. You know, so we definitely have dedicated people movers and product movers to ensure that we're doing that. But the iPhone definitely, like in the beginning when it first came out and Apple did those ads where it was shot on the iPhone, it was more of a novelty, I feel. Then now it's actually quite, the utility of it is incredible. And I feel like brands are seeing that, you know, their clients and their customers are really connecting and engaging with the more pedestrian style imagery, which is great. And, you know, we're here for it, and we'll definitely pivot and try to make it work, and all the changes that it adds with, you know, file handling and the post-production side of it. But it's been interesting. It's definitely been interesting.
And the post side is something I wanted to talk a little bit about. We capture more content in more formats now than ever, and distribution of that content is something that's so crucial. Aldana, when we are working with clients, there seems to be a little bit of a trend in what's changing about how we deliver content, whom we deliver to, and even the mediums that we distribute it to once it's all captured and bow is wrapped around it.
Yeah, that has gone light years ahead of where we were a couple years ago. We used to have all the files delivered to, you know, somebody at the brand that their entire job was to manage assets and you know, make them optimized for wherever they're going to end up going, whether it's social media or their PDP site or an email blast, you know, and then they take it from there, and we just kind of step away and we're like, see you later. And it would also take a whole person on our end to be able to prepare those assets to deliver and make sure that, you know, everything got there. Now with GlobalEdit, which, you know, obviously we're lucky to have you guys as our sister brand, it's so easy, and we've eliminated so much work, so that person that normally would deliver can now move on to doing other things. And it's been just fantastic with all these open API source things where you guys can just do what GlobalEdit does and program in that, hey, when this stakeholder hits approve, it just automatically will start transferring the files over to exactly where they need them to go, making less work for us, making less work for the brand itself. Everybody loves that. We're just like next level efficient now when it comes to delivery, which is great. And we all sleep much better at night knowing that we can just look at a little email that says like, yep, transfer was complete. This is how many files you had. This is how many made it. It is gold.
We're going to talk a little bit about the pre-pro on what makes this possible, but one interesting aspect, and we see this with a lot of the brands that we work with, is there still are such strong silos between your e-commerce team, your editorial team, or your marketing editorial team, and those silos are broken down in the early stages of even planning, which then makes the role of distribution so much more seamless, because the most common feedback we hear is, well, we don't know what e-com is producing, so we're going to go and shoot it on our own, or we're going to schedule our own production just to kind of get the needs of editorial. And that role of a digital asset manager or someone who's kind of a web traffic manager made sense because they were the authority to hand out those assets. And there's somewhat of a process change that is, you know, basic but almost fundamental to this, which is everyone is inclusive to the production that's happening. There's still in motion teams, and then there are the various channels who are going to consume this, all aware about what's going into your typical e-commerce shoot, if you will.
Yeah, and I feel like the very savvy and agile brands are the ones that are doing this more successfully right now, where they are inviting other departments within their brand to, you know, have a stake in the game. You know, they're announcing to everyone, hey, we're having a shoot. We can really maximize on this shoot. If you have assets that you need, let us know. And if we're able to capture them, we will. And they're just becoming much better partners internally to each other's teams, you know, within reason. Obviously, if it's a PDP shoot, that will come first. But, you know, there's a lot more pressure, I guess, to capture even more. And you can't really do that successfully unless you're communicating and really understanding what each stakeholder needs. So we've been lucky enough to work with brands that are doing this very successfully, and just being able to, have multiple people to answer to, but it all funneled down to like just one has been great. Having Slack to be able to communicate with them exactly what they need, and then being realistic about what's possible and what's not possible. And also it's been helpful for, sharing the budget. So if marketing needs additional assets, well, marketing might have additional budget to add to the shoot that can help the shoot be a little bit more creatively expressed than it would have been if we didn't have, $2,000 for props or what have you. So it's been great in that respect, and I feel like it's led to more and more teams being willing to work with each other and share the load of assets that are needed.
I will, I guess, share our second buzzword of today, which is inclusivity.
Yes.
That inclusivity of breaking these teams down. And Lindsay, I see you're nodding your head, and I know you working directly in the studios. Anything else that you want to kind of weigh in on from the inclusivity and the distribution side of this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really great to have more, people in the room when we're having a meeting, more insight as far as where assets are being used. It can, of course, lead to other, new challenges that come up, because the more, stakeholders you have, the more, is kind of essentially at stake with, making sure that the assets can be, used in multiple places. But it's definitely, I think on both sides, every time we kind of get more, people's opinions involved, more insight onto, where assets are being used, we could just keep moving the process and moving our assets forward. So I think we've actually, we've learned a lot as a company too from working in this way, and definitely has helped us, to then be able to apply what we've learned with one brand to another, and, sort of share those efficiencies.
Awesome. And so we've had the opportunity to learn about, I think, something that is so secondhand nature to all of us, but the component of collaboration and then distribution. Where do we see some of the weaknesses are, Aldana, on the technology side that we think are lacking from a production, pre-production?
Yeah. There's a lot of options out there for tools, but there isn't really one that does everything. My biggest wish is for GlobalEdit to be that solution, and for us to handle pre-production and production, not only the post-production. But there isn't really one that really checks off all the boxes, and that checks it off for a variety of users. So, a user at a brand is going to have very different needs than we will, because we service many brands, and so we're going to need accounts, whereas a brand will just need to know about their daily productions and their process through. So we're kind of having to hodgepodge things together still, and create little workarounds and little band-aid situation to be able to have a process that works. Which is unfortunate, because it's 2022. We would love a tool that does everything or seamlessly works together, so that even if it's multiple tools, it all integrates and it can all essentially get you to the finish line, and track all the metrics that you need tracked, give you all the information at a fingertips reach. And we're still really waiting for that tool to happen and to be out there. Yeah.
You hit a term I guess I want to reiterate, which is, right people, right tool. I think that's so important. The components of having a big, bulky, monolithic one system, and that is very rigid in process. I know that when we were going throughout our planning of this conversation, is things are changing up into the moment of capture, or even during capture, and things, you mentioned about, hey, we can't have the model wear a particular lipstick if it's too dark. And if you are stepping yourselves into, tools that are very rigid in terms of workflow, it sort of breaks that flexibility, which was our first buzzword of the day that's needed. And the other piece I love is, having structured teams around the specific tool sets that they're focused on, and really mastering, whether your role is in project management and making sure that the overall campaign and the production is on track. You live in your project management system. If you're responsible for post-production, that you're aligned to those tools. And like you said, Aldana, as long as those tools are communicating, I think that's and that's a big mantra that GlobalEdit, has kind of put first priority. So let's talk about a little bit of a different focus here, which is, and I think you set a great groundwork for this, which is our typical productions, maybe your standard e-com shoot has changed, and those single capture ideas or single capture focuses of your e-com shoot are not the norm, which is amazing, because that's, I think, the norm in a lot of brands that we're trying to crack and break down those silos. So Aldana, what's the key part to being able to build a full, an integrated production to get that iPhone capture that you mentioned, Lindsay, alongside motion and still do model capture? What's the key to all this? There's got to be a tip or a trick.
Yeah, you need an extreme level of pre-production, and also a very heavy understanding and knowledge of the brand that you're shooting for. And that, naturally grows over time. But we've been lucky enough to have great partners in the clients that we have and that we work with. And it's been pretty smooth to grow and just keep capturing insane levels of content at every shoot, and just think outside the box and create new types of content that we've never been requested to capture before, and things like that. But it is really like you have to get down to like a micro level of understanding of what assets are needed, and then really just plot out like, okay, we have to capture 20 of these, 140 of these, and 75 of these. And how many can we do in each day? All right, what factors do we need to consider when scheduling this? Like you said, Brian, with the lipstick. So if they're wearing, we have a lot of beauty clients that sell makeup, and if they're wearing a product that is long wear, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to remove. And if one model is going to have 20 shades of one of these long wear products, as well as, a very light colored lip color earlier in the day, you want to make that earlier in the day, because you don't want the model's lips to be all dry and chapped for the rest of the day, where you have to capture assets on that person. And things like that, just getting into the minutia and really understanding, like, okay, I've literally ingested all the information. Now I'm going to think about what's the worst case scenario. I'm going to think about each model's experience throughout the day, how they're going to travel through all of our sets. Is this realistic? Is it not realistic? Do we need to pivot and assign some of these shots to a different model? Do we need to flag to the client like, hey, this is very aspirational, don't know if we're going to get there? All those things. New photographer is going to take a little bit more time to set up than the photographer that you always shoot with. New lighting direction. We might want to have a day to explore the lighting then. We don't want to do that on a day where it's critical that we, shoot 160 shots, especially since more of the shoots now are next level creative. We're not doing the front back side as much anymore. Brands are really trying to bring that editorial feel to the content, even more so now than before. It was always a thing that people aspired to do in the past. Now it's almost a requirement. So we're really, which makes it way more exciting to be on set, and all the images you capture are now, have some meat on them. They're not just the run of the mill showing the product and very basic. They're beautiful.
You had shared one component that makes this, I guess, simpler with the brands that are adopting this, which is they're really agile. Who are the team members that we're pulling into a pre-pro, so that your standard e-com shoot just isn't your e-com team and your merch team, but you're pulling in folks from marketing? So can you unpack a little bit of the pre-pro secrets or details of back to the inclusivity of the relevant people that we're pulling in to make this plan go off without a hitch, if you will?
Lindsay, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So definitely, we definitely have more people involved in the pre-production process. like you mentioned, marketing, and definitely all of the requests that come from them as far as assets that they'll need. I think we do try to be mindful of having too many cooks in the kitchen as well. So we do really try to identify a key point of contact usually with all of our production. So even though we might be getting input from various team members, to still have one main stakeholder that's sort of the owner of the budget, the creative, the shot list, the pacing, all of that, because we definitely want to be able to work with these types of brands and clients and shoots where we're shooting so much, so many different types of content, but we don't want to compromise creative at any point. We definitely want to make sure we're within budget. So I think it's really like a fine line and a dance that we do of trying to really, make sure that we are, achieving what they want, but also working within sort of the confines, of the shoot, and making sure that we're doing, a good job in the meantime. It's super important.
So for the folks that are with us today, if they're not running in this agile, integrated way of production, is there a couple tips and tricks that we can give them to break that silo down? Does it start with inviting the relevant folks, or maybe more folks than you think, into a pre-pro plan? Or how do we get over this hump of something that for us is sort of secondhand nature to us at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's hard to say because at each brand there might be different experiences, but I think breaking down the walls of like my team, your team, you create those assets, we create these assets. It's like, no, we're all creating assets for the brand. And how can, I think senior leadership challenging them to be more efficient with their asset creation moments is what really opens the door. And as a team is really elevating their assets, for example, if a PDP team is really elevating their assets, that's going to create quite the buzz in a brand that, hey, you guys are doing awesome and these images are amazing. And then more and more other teams within the brand are going to want to jump in on that train and be like, what's the secret? Like, how do you guys do this? How are you creating so much in the same amount of time that we're not able to create that much? And so it's about internal sharing of knowledge, as well as, we help facilitate that. We definitely are able to, think outside the box of how to create more things within the same amount of time throughout the day. And you have these like mega shoots. So instead of having multiple mini shoots throughout the year, you're going to have 3 or 4 mega shoots where you're going to create everything. But the amount of planning and organization and understanding of what content you're going to need down the road is huge. And that doesn't mean you don't have mini shoots in between, but these mega shoots are really maximizing on what the clients are getting after a 3-day engagement here with us. So it's been fun. It's been challenging, but it's been a lot of fun. Keeps us very busy, makes the year fly by. Yeah.
And I think to Aldana's point, I think a lot of our brands that we're working with, on more of our typical e-com shoots, or whatever it may be, social shoots, we're producing content at such a high creative quality that then other teams are wanting to repurpose that for media or campaign. So I think it's also breaking down the stigma of certain types of photographers. If it is someone who's younger, they might be able to shoot the right creative quality, but also get the pacing done of what we need. So it's being able to look towards different types of crew and creative talent that's out there. And I think that's something that we work on too, is really trying to broaden up our pool of talent that we work with, and really sort of cater our shoots to the right combinations of team members, really being able to match up like the right skill sets with our projects to really get the best quality possible, and realizing that that really great creative person might be someone that is a little bit newer or more agile and is willing to sort of push the boundaries with us at the same time.
The crew is an interesting component. I mean, we have the people, process, and technology, sort of the holy trinity of creative ops. And so on the people side, Lindsay, the productions vary, the product varies. I think it's it's sort of it's a new day every day. And so talk to me a little bit about how we're adopting the team, particularly on capture, to be able to come in and get all of the variety of shots that we want, with, I think a team that, comes with us to each production. And we also, have the access to folks that, from a freelance perspective. So I know that there were some interesting call outs there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we rely heavily on our freelance teams. That way, we're working with people that are, working with all different types of brands and shoots, and then they bring their knowledge back to us, which makes it really helpful for us because we're always constantly learning new things and evolving, our capabilities. And definitely on set, I mean, certain roles have evolved into just, really taking on so much on set. So even on a recent shoot we did, we have a DP who, her and her team are setting up, a whole lighting setup and, for a video shoot. And then they're also simultaneously setting up a video photo booth on an iPhone that a PA can run. So really like maximizing, I think we're seeing that maximizing on all fronts, like not just with our own company, but really like we're also getting a lot out of like the crew that we're working with because, our brands are, sort of expecting more and more from us. And that's sort of just the nature of, how we're all working towards right now. But definitely too, it's great to have our freelance crews because they always bring something new back to us and then we can suggest that to a brand. So there's this good synergy going on of, us all pushing the limits and bringing new ideas to the table.
Aldana was talking about the needs of the technology being flexible. There's also that people component where we need to be really flexible and adaptable, which is impressive. One other point to just kind of dive into before we get on to our third topic of today, which is the planning that has to go into this and the component of, you're doing a lot more than just shop planning. I think we've referred to it as matrix planning. And Aldana, can you share a little bit about, in summary, we have a pre-pro component, there's the on-set coordination, but this component of, how do you actually facilitate matrixed planning to ensure that it goes smoothly from the initial idea to the distribution of the content?
Yeah, it's an insane level of tracking of everything and just understanding of what you're doing and really knowing it and knowing the brand that you're shooting for and being able to flag things that are, things that you think they would be concerned about, as well as knowing when to push and pull and what will need more time, what won't. So over time, you get better and better and sharpen that pencil a little bit more each time that you work with a brand. But I just think that the level of synergy between, to reuse that word, between the brand and the production company is like never seen before because we are capturing so much and you do need to be an extension of them essentially and almost feel like you're part of their brand and their team. You just get paid by a different company essentially. But it's been, challenging sometimes to work with clients that aren't as forthcoming with that information. But I think once they realize that, once they give us that information, they're able to really allow us to stretch our legs and give them even more than what they expected. But the amount of planning that goes in all the way through post and, how the stakeholders change as you're going from pre-production to production to post-production, we have to keep tabs on all of that and make sure that we're delivering for all those people essentially that we're working with. And it's a lot, but once you finish a project, you just feel so good. You're like, finally did it. On to the next one. 2 months of planning.
I guess, and something that just kind of popped into my head is if you're within a brand who still has that fear or and I think that's the wrong word to use, but that there are still silos within your production crews.
Yeah,
they're apprehensive. Is come to a team like ours, and you specifically, Aldana and Lindsay, to let us almost facilitate that and show the ways of breaking down those silos, pulling in the right folks to the pre-pro, into the planning. And Lindsay, you called out, too many chiefs in the kitchen can kind of make for an unproductive process. And it's very natural to how we go about guiding the people and the process component. And you have the support of the technology from GlobalEdit. So it kind of makes that beautiful trifecta naturally. So I guess it's almost a free way to test it as a brand if you're not ready to orchestrate all of this change management at once, is come to production partners like Industrial Color to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Cool.
GlobalEdit's been great at helping us balance the too many cooks in the kitchen for sure. Because if you want to limit, the head count on set, whether it's for COVID or for too many cooks in the kitchen, they can watch the shoot on GlobalEdit, which is fantastic. And we can put in feedback and we can action that quickly. So it's been great. It's been a useful tool for us to be able to manage all those personalities for sure.
One piece, and I never like to dive too much into GlobalEdit on a time that hopefully we're sharing some interesting insights of production overall. But what's really interesting for us at GlobalEdit is with the integrated productions, we were so used to, okay, I have my JPEGs or my TIFFs, and I have an EIP that's coming in, and then on my motion, and folks are now like, I want to ingest any file type, and our product team will ask, well, what are the files? And the creators come back like, it doesn't matter. And I agree, it's any format of capture that we can get out of that day, whether it's your iPhone and the iPhone files that are output, or you are still producing JPEGs, something new is always going to pop up in terms of that creative format, that just because you're in the moment, you capture it on your iPhone, or someone brings a new piece of technology to the table that day. We at GlobalEdit are like, okay, we have to be ready to ingest anything of any file size type, and it makes that approach, okay, how do we still render color accurate and the rest of that. So,
and be able to give it a home, like a non-traditional asset that's created, in the past might have just been emailed, like, oh, I got this really great BTS shot on my phone, and I'm just, a social media coordinator on set, just happened to stop by to deliver something or whatever, and here you go, and just going to email it. Well, that's going to go to one person or maybe a team, but it's going to get lost. And I feel like having GlobalEdit or any tool to really get all your assets in one place and have the landscape in front of you of what you have to work with is so valuable to brands that value organization and work across their different departments. This is like key to that. If you don't have a repository or a place where everybody can kind of see what's being created and leverage those assets, then are you really maximizing the potential of them? I don't think so. So we definitely celebrate that type of workflow.
The last call out on this, and this is something I'm truly passionate about, is on the prospective client side. When we're learning about the systems, it's often, we have an enterprise DAM, but we also have Dropbox, and we have Box, and we have WeTransfer, and there still is almost the tolerance, which, listen, you said it best, it's, you have to be flexible, you can't be too rigid in your technology choice. But when it comes to centralizing your assets, having your production system be your DAM, and having a Dropbox account and having Box, and letting that almost chaos ensue itself can be counterintuitive. We talked a lot about, distribution goes to the last mile that you're meant to consume it in, not to everyone has their own personalized place to store it, whether it is still email or it is still Box. It's get everything back together and let it be the brains to distribute it out. So I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
So and then I want to be respectful. We're going to quickly get down to time, and there's one more topic to talk about. There's been a lot of gravy and great things that we've talked about here today, but there are definitely risks. If you haven't already ripped off the Band-Aid and come out of your silo of separated productions, and we deal with new risks every day while we've embraced it so much. So Aldana, where does this idea of capturing all of this amazing content within one shoot, where does it fall short?
Yeah, so there are lots of risks associated, and you can temper those risks a little bit by preparing. You can prepare, but no matter what, the day of the shoot, something's going to go wrong. A model's going to have COVID and not show up, and we're going to have to reschedule some things around, and that could, be a domino effect that just pushes us over our time, and now we're going to have overtime in order to capture all the assets that day. Or, a multitude of things could happen. We're in LA, you could have an earthquake that pauses your shoot. Not to be Debbie Downer, but this is like life, and we're prepared as much as we can for these risks. But when you have such a jam-packed schedule, you do kind of invite the potential that not everything will be captured. So it's really important to level set with the client and with the brands directly and just say, like, look, this is what we're aspiring to reach. And this is where we're probably going to land. And, 9 times out of 10, we surprise everyone, even ourselves. And we achieve a level that we've never thought possible. Or, we go into the shoot being like, oh yeah, we can't shoot that many. Like, not going to happen, but let's aim for it. And, I think, knock on wood, we've surprised ourselves every time. And it's almost like, how high can the bar really go until we reach that ceiling? But so far, so good. We haven't really ever hit a place where we're like, man, we really underestimated. And I think that speaks to the level of preparation that we do and the like really understanding what is humanly possible and what is not. And if not possible, what can you introduce to make it possible? Does that mean more models and more hair and makeup people? Does it mean more PAs to be able to usher people around? Does it mean more studio space to be able to capture these assets without interrupting the flow of another set? It's like a matrix that we definitely, plug and play and move things around endlessly to be the maximized efficiency. And then the day comes and you're just like, hopefully everything goes well and we hit it, we have good relationships with the clients and they understand that what we're trying to achieve is the impossible, but we're poised and ready to make it possible.
I can't help but step back for just 1 second. What's so cool is, and this is something probably fairly obvious, but it's industrial color is focused around making production and creativity its brand and its business. And that's what, while some of these are, back of the hand, we know them night and day, how much we can invest on the brand side in our creativity and in our process improvement is so important, because ultimately it gets down to not everything can be done. And Lindsay, I know that that's where you have to help step in and manage the client expectation and kind of play that role of what can we do and what can't we do, and that role of nice to have versus need to have.
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely, I think my primary role is sort of making sure that we are always pushing forward and trying to shoot as much as we can and, take all of our clients' needs into account when we're producing a shoot, but also sort of managing, expectations and the reality that comes with production, which is that, even if on one day we were able to shoot, our highest shot count ever, that next day, their production, no days are ever really the same. There's always new production challenges that come up. And so sort of cautioning, that productivity, but, it's always our goal on set to shoot as much as possible without compromising quality. And what we try to do in those situations too is just work with our clients on, what are your priority images from the day? What do you absolutely need to get out of this shoot and this budget? And then figuring out, okay, where we can sort of supplement shots as needed, whether we can, create colorways in post, or what we can push to a potential next shoot. So I think sort of, trying to maintain that balance is really key in making sure that, we provide what our clients need, but also make sure we're, working within our processes too.
Yep.
Very good call out. We are right at the 1:45 mark, and there's been a ton of questions that have come in. So let's take a couple from the audience. One question that came in when we were talking a little bit about distribution is, how do you deal with the constant requests that go back to the studio for access to the content? Is there methods of what we're doing that, alleviate the constant, hey, can I get access to this particular piece of content?
We're lucky because obviously we are partners with GlobalEdit, and so it's really just a matter of when GlobalEdit onboards a brand to allow access to stakeholders that might need access to those assets. So our jobs are way easier now because we don't have to answer those emails that'll pop in of like, hey, I heard that you guys produce a shoot. Do you happen to have these assets? It might be faster to go to the people who created them or did the post-production than it would an internal team member that is super slammed and busy. We're here to service the client, so we're definitely going to get back to them immediately. So having GlobalEdit and being able to point them to the place where it lives in GlobalEdit has been a game changer for us.
And one component I know, Aldana, that we've changed is every capture, no matter the resolution, high res, low res, it was a proxy, it was the iPhone grab, everything goes in and is made available. And I think that's, we once were in a place where it was like, hey, only upload your selects to GlobalEdit, because there was, we weren't living in a space of infinite storage. But now it's, I think you came to me several months ago and you're like, Brian, I want everything that we're capturing. I want the high res, I want the RAWs, I want the JPEGs, I want everything in there so the client can just self-serve themselves to everything. And I think that's,
yeah, because it was like such a a non-efficient way of working, where we'd have to put low res up and then they'd make selects, and then we'd just put the high res of just the selects, and then that would take hours and an entire human being to do, instead of that person just processing everything out that's needed, uploading. And it's like a grocery store. Like, we have all sorts of different types of things, and each thing has different types of that, and it's organized, very well, and is searchable, and it just makes for everybody's life to be way easier. And now I can, utilize that person to do something else and move on to the next project, instead of being bogged down with constantly having to re-upload different types of assets of the same image, So we're very excited that we've gotten more efficient in that capacity.
very cool. The second one, and I think this is a tough question, but I'm going to put it out there, is for those of us that haven't merged our production teams, how do we make this happen? Like, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to put it out to you two ladies who are the best in this. Any advice you have on merging production teams?
Yeah, I think it's the mentality at the brand. You have to break down the barriers of like my team, your team, and just try to do what you do to benefit the brand. Like I tried to ask, I would ask myself, like, is what we're doing benefiting just our team or the brand overall? Because what's the goal? The goal is for the brand to benefit. And I think it's human nature to kind of like keep what you're doing to your team, and like, but it just ultimately, it doesn't really allow for the efficiency that we've seen with the companies that are, allowing the content to flow backward and forwards across all the different avenues that they have internally. And it makes more sense financially as well. The CFO would probably give me a gold medal for suggesting that they should do that, because they'll save money in the end. And although these shoots are pretty mega shoots, and it does take a lot of, resources to make them happen, they are so valuable, and they check off so many boxes for brands, and it's just really incredible what we can capture in one of them. And I just feel like if more brands adopted working together and seeing what other partners within their company need, and kind of ideating like, wait, if we did do our shoots but on a bigger scale, could we combine forces? And it's scary, I'm sure, of like, hey, I want my shoot to be the focus of the day, and I don't want them, I don't want marketing to take over and all of a sudden their needs outweigh what my needs are. And so that's where we come in as the referee, essentially. And there is always a person on the brand side that also acts as an internal referee for them, because we are not good at saying no to clients unless it's something that will jeopardize what we're doing. But somebody on their side that can keep the balance, and usually that's somebody higher up on the food chain that oversees all, and us essentially saying, okay, this is how we're going to do this. This is going to be the focal point of this shoot. However, we are going to capture these like satellite content for these other partners within their brand. And this is how we're going to get it all done. And then removing that fear of, wait, my stuff isn't going to get the attention it needs. We're going to give it all attention, and we're going to make sure that it's all, what it needs to be, and deliver it. And I think that's what makes it successful, is partnering with an outside company that makes it their priority.
When it's a priority, I think you make time, and that's the piece that I take away from what you're sharing, Aldana, is you have to make time to move to this integrated production, work with experts like yourself and like Lindsay. And I know that, and this probably is a totally different topic we could talk about, but the uplift in performance from a shopping experience, we know that our clients who elevate their content into this have drastic increases in their e-commerce shopping experience, because I'm not the most sophisticated buyer, but the kind of the image, brands are competing for consumers' eyes, and you have to have that engaging content, which means it is not just straight product photography, it's elevated.
Yeah.
The last question, and this is a bonus question because this gets me excited, and I think regardless of the role that you're in, whether you're in a technology role, you're in a production role, is when we ask people to change, it's asking more of them. And there's almost this fear or the state of, how do we deal with the burnout of people already maxed out in their jobs, focused on e-com or focused on their particular silo of production. And there's this fear of burnout could lead to attrition, or burnout could lead to lower performance. How are we getting through that on our side to ensure that we can meet those needs that are ever changing?
Yeah. Lindsay, do you want to take this? Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, I can take it. I think that's definitely like a good topic to raise. I feel like something that Aldana and I even talk about is, so many things that we want to change even within our own internal ways of working, but always, being able to try and find the time, right? Because when you're working at such a rigorous pace, it can be hard to stop and sort of course correct. But I think it's really important. I mean, we do a lot of, postmortems with clients, or we're always sort of, doing a regroup on how things went to continually move the needle in the right direction. And I think, yes, of course, there's, potential for burnout, and, people are working really hard. But I think ultimately, if we can work to streamline our processes, leverage shoots for more efficiencies, like overall that will actually help with that issue, because you won't have, the same teams working on, doubling their efforts. They can be all working towards, one shoot with one output of assets that can be repurposed. So making the assets work harder essentially, and not, the teams, I think is sort of the goal. But definitely that transition period, I think, can be hard, but knowing that there is some light at the end of the tunnel is definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I just want to add that also being very transparent about what's expected before, and getting that buy-in and sign off from the person of like, yeah, this is going to be an intense day, but I'm here for it. Let's go. And just being able to be honest. Don't bait and switch your team and say like, oh, it's going to be a normal shoot, and then it's like you're actually going to shoot 7 times more than you've ever shot your entire life on our set today. And just allowing people to have a window into what it could be like. And this is the good, the bad, the ugly. And are you in it to win it with us? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah.
Okay, great. We are right at the time, and I want to be respectful, give folks a little bit of time to regroup before the top of the hour in the next meeting. Thank you, Aldana and Lindsay, so much. If anyone would like to reach out to Aldana or Lindsay directly, please, you have their contact information from the start of the webinar. Find them on LinkedIn, come to Industrial Color or GlobalEdit.com. A big thank you to Henry Stewart again, and for the folks that joined us today or will watch this webinar after. We hope you get a ton of valuable insights and have the motivation and courage now to jump into the world of integrated production. So thank you again, and I wish you all a nice rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.